Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. If you are new here, hi, hello, my name is Loey, and no, I am not a 26-year-old cheerleader. I feel like between the hoodie, the little hair scarf, and then the pony, I literally look like I've been in high school too long. Kudos to Ari for pulling off this pony all the time, because she is not an easy feat on the scalp. I have had the worst headache since this thing has gone on. You guys have no idea. So there's your mini ASMR for the day. Today I am here to talk about Petscop. Now, in my last video covering unsettling YouTube channels, I had mentioned Petscop among other things, and I told you guys to comment whichever one it was that you were like the most excited about, that you were the most here for, and all of the responses were so mixed, but I had already started work on Petscop anyways. The great thing about my channel is that I plan on never stopping, so hopefully I will just get to each of those topics eventually, and we'll cover each of them as we go on. But for now, I really want to delve into the world of Petscop, primarily because they have, since like Easter of this year, uploaded 5 new videos onto their channel. It seems like it's not only still ongoing, but when updates are given, they're like given fast, and you're given a lot of information. Just to like throw it out here, I'm not the first person to cover Petscop, and I know that. I know that Game Theory did a great successful series on it. I know that Nexpo covered it. I know that Nightmind covered it. I'm sure that another one of your faves has as well, but I definitely wanted to see what all the fuss was for myself. I had watched videos covering it, but had never sat down and fully watched the series and watched each video in order. I'd watched the videos like on and off and like jumped in between them and everything, but I never really understood what was going on. Ever since I decided I wanted to do this video and I wanted to sit down and understand what Petscop was all about, I have been falling down a rabbit hole. So in this video, we're going to be covering the first few episodes of Petscop. In my notes here, I have covered up to episode 6, and that was a lot to write down. But just with the amount of information that we have in here, it may be another long series akin to the length of Ashlog. So I hope you guys are excited. I know I am. If you guys are unfamiliar with my channel and you are just stumbling across this video, hi, hello, my name is Loey, and I do a lot of spooky videos here on my channel, as well as plus size fashion and beauty and other stories. But one of my favorite things in the world is talking about these viral scary stories, as I have so lovingly dubbed them, and kind of digging to the bottom of all of them. And I love doing that alongside you guys. So make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And without any further ado, let's talk Petscop. To open up this series, we have episode 1 of Petscop. And when the very first episode starts, some of you may know this site and some of you may not. You may be too young to know that, and that is such a scary thought. I'm so old. This is a PlayStation 1 opening, dating this, whatever this is that we're watching, back in like the 90s. And then the next screen that we see is the developer of the game that we're about to watch being played, and that is called Carolina, and the copyright is for 1997. So this is a really old game, and our main character lets us know pretty quickly that he is doing this to show whoever is watching that everything he's been saying is true.
Alright, so this is just to prove to you that I'm not lying about this game that I found.
He names his character Paul, so we're gonna call him Paul. It's pretty much the only identifying information that we have for him. And when Paul begins to play this game, we enter a world called the Gift Plane. Upon entering this world, he sees the following sign: the Gift Plane has closed indefinitely, and all personnel have left. If you are unaware, the Gift Plane provided homes to over 100 young pets. Unfortunately, we have failed to remove all the pets from their homes. 48 pets remain here at the time of this writing. We would strongly encourage you to visit our 8 homes and find some friends to take with you. Each pet is uniquely valuable. You should have no problem finding somebody that you love. the gift plane staff. Paul begins to walk around the first level of this game, or what seems like the first level of this game, and we realize really quickly that whatever it is that he's playing is an unfinished game, shown by the fact that he literally walks just like straight off of the map. Right away though, you notice that other than the game not being finished, there are still some really kind of strange things happening here. Paul tries to interact with the door and it responds by telling him this door is locked or not, but you don't know how to open doors. That's kind of a strange thing to say, but maybe our creepy little green dude just doesn't know how to twist a doorknob. I don't know. Another key phrase from this introduction that I found really interesting was that the game encourages you to pick someone you like. You don't have to love them right away. Also, don't be discouraged if they run from you. They want a home, but they're just afraid. Show them there's nothing to be afraid of. And as we walk through this first level, Paul tricks and captures pets, which doesn't exactly seem to be showing our friends that there's nothing to be afraid of, but there doesn't really seem to be another option offered to us in the game. That's when Paul reveals to us that there is a note that came alongside this video game. And it feels very akin to those, I don't know if you guys were really into them, but I was so obsessed with like Ben Drowned and like the Pokemon creepypastas of like cartridges that would be found at a garage sale and they were all haunted and the kid who had them before was dead and it was just very dramatic. It felt like that, but scarier because it's real and in front of us.
Alright, so I still can't catch this guy. The reason we're here is because in the note that came with this, which is short, the first line in all capital letters, I'm gonna read it. It says, I walked downstairs, and when I got to the bottom, instead of proceeding, I turned the right and became a shadow monster man. Below that, a date, June 13th, 1997. For you, colon. Please go to my website on the sticker, and also go to Ronith's room, and press start, and press down, 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 right, start. I'm just gonna do this now. So what is it? Down, 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 right, start.
Following the instructions on this note, the music in the game stops and Paul walks out of this first level and into something that almost looks like a dark underbelly of the game.
Alright. So there's nothing out here, as far as I've seen. But actually, I think there is something out here. I just haven't seen it yet.
It's vast and huge and there's nothing in it, and it's a stark, stark difference from the bright and cheery overworld that we had seen before. And I always refer to this as the underworld because it almost feels like the underbelly of that bright gift plane we had just seen. Paul says he had found this before by following the note's instructions, and he basically tried to walk around for a while and couldn't find anything. But then abruptly and out of nowhere, he finds a closed door. And that's pretty much where episode 1 ends. So let's move into episode 2. This episode begins with silence. Paul is not narrating for us. Nobody is saying anything. There's a series of strange beeps, and suddenly the door that we had found in episode 1 is unlocked.
Hey, so, the door opened on its own. I was just in the other room for a couple of minutes, and I came back and the door was open, and I checked the recording, because I was recording, and the door just opens on its own. I didn't do anything.
Inside of the door is this dark, creepy, almost basement-looking area. And what I find interesting is those bright, happy shapes from the overworld, the gift plane, are all down here in those little happy, like, you got the coin or whatever, ring out as he walks through. But other than that, there's no sound except for his own footsteps. As Paul approaches the ringing phone, he gets the notification that Care left the room. And next to the phone is a list of 3 girls. A is happy and smiling. B looks a bit unkept and a little bit sad, to be frank. And then NLM, who looks like she's crying and just overall devastated, or as much of that feeling as you can get from a sprite on a piece of paper. As Paul continues through this dark basement, he begins finding things that he can interact with. One of these things shows him a dark green house. One of them shows a tall brick building, which looks a bit like a school. And then the final shows him a windmill. But they're all very hard to see, and the entire thing is super dark. Also, he sees like this shadow thing and doesn't even comment on it. Maybe he didn't see it, but I saw it clear as day, and it was really weird. It just kind of popped into the frame and he didn't say a word. He then goes on to enter what looks like a graveyard area, and specifically finds a grave with eyes, and later on I realized like a nose and a mouth somewhere in there too. And upon reading the headstone, he sees Michael Hammond from 1988 to 1995. Mike was a gift. Paul himself remarks,
"That's a dead kid."
He does seem to be a bit taken aback by this, but continues on, and then finds a flower of all things in this dark underbelly of this game. Is this like bright, cheery flower. And when he tries to interact with it, his character just pulls petals off of it. So after doing this a few times, he walks away to find one of those little sprites that looks like the NLM version that we saw earlier of what we can assume to be Care. He can't get to where she is. He can't go to console her or anything. So he goes back to the flower and continues to pick off all of its petals. When he returns to the same room that Care was in, her sprite is disfigured, and this was the first moment in the series that I felt truly unnerved just looking at that character. Paul just leaves it there. I think it's also important to note here that she's not catchable, whereas her A sprite, B sprite, and NLM sprite all are listed as catchable, so this was something else entirely. Paul proceeds on and finds a room that is covered in creepy kid drawings, as well as a tall red character that when interacting with it prompts you to ask. So Paul asks, "What?" And it responds, "I don't know." Okay. He then moves past it to find a view of this windmill that we saw earlier, except now it seems to be brightened up and it looks a bit more clear. When he moves away from it, this red like thing from before prompts him to keep watching the windmill, and oh, it just gives me like the chills. Can you imagine if you were actually playing this game, if it was like a real game and like you were playing it and it told you keep watching the windmill? I hate that. That's literally scarier than like any horror game. So the windmill begins to turn and a weird noise plays.
Oh.
Not much happens despite this thing telling us to watch the windmill. It just turns and a really creepy noise plays. Paul addresses the viewer specifically.
But also, when you come home next month, and hopefully you're feeling a little more enthusiastic about that now, we can investigate this together. And maybe you'll find stuff that I can't find here.
Who is Paul talking to? Who is coming home? Who is he encouraging to play this game? It all just seems so bizarre, and suddenly I think I realized at this point, Paul wasn't making this video to show to us, an audience, one specific person. But who is that, and why is he telling them about this? Paul then enters probably one of the creepiest areas of the entire game, which is called the Quitter's Room, where he is the mirrored image of a smiling little girl. Every move he makes, she makes. Then suddenly, these same beeping sounds that happened earlier happen again. And when Paul turns back to the girl, she's a few steps off from him, and it seems like something strange has gone wrong.
Hey, sorry, I had to look at that for a moment. In the video. I was a little nervous. The tones, I think this is the same tones, that you might have heard in the beginning. I'm gonna put in the beginning the part where the door opened. And also the way the guy on the other side was moving for a moment. I'm gonna ask for your comment later on that. So I was looking around here. So this is backwards. It says, do you remember being born? And this just says quitter's room. So interestingly, I'm on the reverse side.
And that's pretty much where episode 2 closes out. You guys do have to keep in mind, I'm not telling you everything that happens in each of these. To get the full effect of Petscop, you have to actually watch the series. But these are key standout points that will help me in my telling this story to you, as well as coming to my own conspiracies and conclusions. Episode 3 opens up with Paul exploring a new area that has a hole in the wall, and when you interact with this, it does seem like you're supposed to put something into this hole, but we're not so sure what just yet. So he kind of moves on from that and finds a blank easel. Interacting with this seems to take you to a mini game of sorts where you make a face on the easel. You get to choose your eyes, your eyebrows, your nose, your mouth, so on and so forth. And when he completes this, the game begins to like violently shake for what he claims is like 10 minutes. When it finally stops, a door has opened, and when he enters it, there is what looks like a kid's room. There are things in this room like a magic 8-ball, a lamp, a truck. There's something sitting on the bed for some reason, or someone. And I think as we go on, it becomes more apparent that these faces belong to whoever these rooms belong to. So he continues to try out other faces, explores other rooms, but then decides to go back to Mike's grave, study that face, and then use that on the easel. When he enters it correctly, he receives this prompt. Mike is not inside right now. He is dead. You may visit his room. And then on the table is what looks like this figure that we were asking the questions to earlier, as well as like a pair of tweezers. It's interesting to note that there's also no child sitting on the bed in this room. Paul also does try out the other face that he saw on a different headstone, and this leads him to the following prompt. Care is missing. Visiting this room also shows that question figure as well as some colored pencils. But there's also something to interact with in this room. Interacting with the question mark on the wall prompts. Your wife says Care isn't growing eyebrows. You say, that's a puzzle. You're secretly very excited to hear this news. You're in the bathtub thinking about her. I have a guess at which child you'll pick next. When you find her room, passage to my right will lead to her. She'll appear from the darkness, limping, and I'll shoot her in the head. Paul himself says, what am I reading? And I asked myself the same exact question. What in the world is that? Continuing on with this thing that's on the wall, Tiara says young people can be psychologically damaged beyond rebirthing. A young person walks into your school building. They walk in with you. You're holding their hands. They come out crying into their hands because nobody will ever love them again. Nobody loves me. They wander onto the Newmaker plane. At this point, Paul again mentions the note that came with this game and how it said, for you. And it's clear that these prompts specifically on the wall are not just randomly there for any one reason. They are addressing someone in particular, someone specific who is meant to find the game, to play it. And it seems like whoever created it knows a dark, dark secret that whoever was supposed to play it was trying to hide.
I'm wondering now. Because the note, remember the note that came with this game? It said, for you. it was for you. And this note is referring to the player. It's saying you. I was already thinking this, but it seems like it's possible. This game was made for, well, this part of the game was made for somebody to see. I don't know. It just seems like it was intended for somebody. Not me, certainly.
And so that's kind of where episode 3 ends off. In episode 4, Paul makes a pretty startling realization that in the upstairs area, still the underbelly of the top bright cheery game, but the upstairs, above like this basement world that he's been in, roughly where he was viewing the windmill downstairs, where the like question thing was prompting him to keep watching the windmill, there is a camera sticking out of the ground. But when he follows it, there's no windmill there, just a placeholder for it. And he himself remarks that he must be missing something.
But yeah, I think my understanding is correct. It's just, I'm missing something.
In episode 5, Paul starts to question this question tool thing that he has found previously. And he said after a lot of trial and error, essentially he realized that certain questions would prompt real responses and not just that generic "I don't know" response. When asking it, "Who is Tiara?" it responds with "Petscop kid." Very smart. When Paul asks, "Who am I?" the answer is "New maker." When asking, "Where am I?" the response is "Under the New maker plane." This is the point where this question figure, this thing starts glowing out of nowhere. Paul asks it, "Who are you?" and there's no answer. A moment later, it says, "Turn off the PlayStation." And every time I think about this, I get chills because I can't imagine playing this game, finding all of these creepy things and knowing that, and then it tells you turn off the PlayStation. Paul asks why, and there's a long silence before he gets his response. Marvin picks up tool. Hurts me when PlayStation on. Suddenly the question tool switches back to red. Paul asks it, "Who are you?" and it responds, "Tool." Paul's sprite begins glitching out here. And then this episode ends with the question being, "Remember being born?" And the answer is, "I'm not Tiara." Those are the first 5 episodes of Petscop here for you guys, and I hope you enjoyed this first video on them. I definitely have a lot more to say on this topic, and Petscop can seem a little bit confusing here on the surface, definitely creepy, but it's kind of hard to make a storyline out of it. And my hope is that by the end of my videos, you guys will not only know exactly what's happening, but we will be able to solve the mystery together. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!